Hey everybody, welcome back to Arbitrary 20. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Player's Handbook Playtest 7 UA. For this video, we're going to be taking a look at the spell and weapon changes.
Yeah, so first, big change. The Arcane, Divine, and Primal lists are gone, and all spellcasting classes return to using their own lists, which I don't like. I thought the Arcane, Divine, and Primal lists were really cool and simplified and future-proofed a lot of things, but is what it is. I'll probably ask for it back, but I know they probably won't bring it back.
I liked them too, for the same reasons that you liked them.
It also created the coolest bar that we have ever seen, in my opinion, but unfortunately, it seems not a lot of people like that on the survey.
Pour one out.
And then Arcane Eruption, which is the Sorcerer exclusive, now requires a dex save rather than a con save, which is a pretty nice buff. And I think that makes a bit more sense too, honestly.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Con save definitely made this kind of a rough thing to go off, and now making a dex save feels a lot better. It should go off more often, and yeah, like you said, it also just makes sense.
Yeah, and I've always thought the concept was really cool there. Like, you pick a die and it applies that condition, and the lowest damage applies the best condition.
Yeah, that was a fun thing when I played with this. Like, I don't know, I've said several times before, I like conditions. I like doing things that influence the battle in that way, other than just damage.
Yeah.
So, this is cool.
Now, probably the biggest change, Counterspell now requires the target to make a saving throw instead of requiring the caster to make an ability check. The spell's previous design failed to account for the capabilities of the target, which is rectified by the new design. The new design also specifies that the countered spell must be cast with spell components. And if the countered spell used a spell slot, that slot is not expended. So it still wastes the action economy, the action, bonus action, or reaction, but the spell slot is no longer expended. Obviously, first reaction is that this is a huge nerf, but really, I don't think it's that big of a nerf, depending on the situation. Like, it really just depends on the creature you're fighting now. Like, most average, like, mages and things like that in the Monster Manual and Monsters of the Multiverse have, like, a +0 to +2 con. If you have a decent spell save DC and you're trying to counterspell them, you're almost guaranteed to do it. So, like, in that case, it's probably easier to counter their spells. Well, I mean, unless you were just auto-countering at the same level. I mean, I don't see it being a huge nerf there. But now if you're fighting, like, the CR 20 plus casters that have, like, a +16 con save, there's no use even using Counterspell. It's so likely to fail.
I mean, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe this version of Counterspell was put in place simply to, like, one of the reasons was to maybe avoid the bouncing back and forward of I counterspell, well, I counterspell, your counterspell. It still
could be a thing, though.
Yeah, but maybe this makes you kind of think a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, like you just said, a +16, con.
Yeah, it's going to make the counterspells of, well, I mean, not necessarily. I was going to say it makes the counterspells of the bosses like that a bit stronger, because you can't counter them back nearly as easily. It just makes casters really want to put more into their constitution saving throws, like taking resilient con and, standing next to the paladin or stuff like that. You're going to want more features like that. And this also just gives the sorcerer like an inherent advantage because they just have constitution saving throw proficiency.
Yeah, I'm going to look forward to seeing this. Hopefully one of us gets to play.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays.
Because I like it, because it's different. I'm just curious to see how it all go down.
Yeah, I honestly didn't mind Counterspell or think it was, like, overpowered or anything, but this is interesting. I know there were a lot of people who thought it was dumb, but
beforehand, just shut things down, yeah. That's fair.
I mean, we've seen from personal experience in our last session that the old Counterspell in combination with Subtle Spell is a little strong if you're fighting against a mage. Just guaranteed or shutting down their turn every time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe it is a fair nerf.
We just have to see how it plays.
We'll see how it plays, yeah. Eldritch Blast and Hex revert to their 2014 versions. Hex, I mean, not really great before, and they had actually nerfed it, so, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. Either way, really. But Eldritch Blast is pretty huge, because now, for better or for worse, you can just take 2 levels, or even now 1 level of Warlock, and you have the infinitely scaling best damage cantrip with Agonizing Blast.
Yeah, they really packaged it all up in there nicely so you can just ship, signed, sealed, delivered,
Yeah, Warlock is just crazy now.
Yeah, we'll see how long that stays.
If that sticks, we'll see. And then Jump is now a bonus action. Its target must be willing. Its benefit no longer relies on your strength or speed and can be improved at higher levels. So it's a bonus action, a duration of a minute, and once on each of the creature's turns, it can jump 30 feet by spending only 10 feet of movement. And upcasting targets additional creatures. I do wish the duration was a little bit longer. Like, Long Strider lasts an hour. I mean, this is a little bit better than Long Strider, but I don't know. I'm still personally not going to take this very often. I mean, maybe you just take this on your wizard and you use Memorize spell when you need to jump over a chasm or something, but yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably have to get pretty creative if you want to keep something like this in your arsenal.
Unfortunately, it's not a ritual like it is in Baldur's Gate, but there's no point in it being a ritual if it only lasts a minute.
Yeah, I'd like to see a couple changes here. Like you said,
I think increased duration is pretty big.
Yeah, that would make it a lot better for sure. I don't usually like casting Jump, so.
Yeah, I mean, currently in the game, it's basically unusable.
Yeah.
This is at least, like, it does something. It definitely needs a little bit more to be worth taking.
Yeah.
And then lastly, like we talked about in the Sorcerer video, Sorcerer's Burst now uses a D8 instead of a D6. Still the same on the way, still explodes on the 8, and then so a little bit better. Now the damage with the exploding 8 is somewhere in between a D8 and a D10, which is not bad for a cantrip. And then it's pretty cool that you can choose the damage type as well. So, not a bad cantrip now.
I mean, I enjoyed using this when it was a D6, but, more damage out of a D8.
Definitely needed the more damage, I think. Yeah.
Definitely feels good now.
And then on to some of the weapon changes. The heavy property has been redesigned. Rather than being based on size, it's based on your strength or dexterity score. So, heavy weapon is unwieldy compared to other weapons. You have disadvantage on your attack rolls with a heavy weapon if it's a melee weapon and your strength score isn't at least 13. And if it's a ranged weapon, your dexterity score isn't at least 13. I think that's a really nice change. So all the small races, and I don't think there's any tiny races anymore. I remember the fairy was tiny in the UA, but so small or smaller, I guess, if you cast Reduce on yourself or something. And now still use heavy weapons, which is nice. I mean, it was always annoying that you wanted to make your halfling barbarian and they couldn't use the weapon you wanted to, or something like that.
Yep, I definitely never liked that rule.
Yeah.
This makes sense, and it feels a lot better too.
This is something I would even consider implementing just immediately in my games, honestly.
It definitely feels more fair, and it doesn't just randomly lock you out of stuff.
Yeah. And then on to weapon mastery stuff, the flex property is gone. Personally, I wish they would have redesigned it into something better rather than just getting rid of it, but it is what it is. And the push property now works on any creature that is large or smaller, and it requires you to push the target straight away from yourself. Compared to the last time push, it was still 10 feet away from you, so not exactly sure what the clarification is there, but it just had to be no more than one size larger than you. And now it's just larger, smaller. So in most cases, going to be the same, but for your Rune Knights or your Path of the Giant Barbarian, you're not going to get any additional benefit from the push property by increasing your size. Which I don't see why they thought that was necessary, but I don't think it'll make a huge difference in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, most races are medium, so
yeah,
this is still going to feel good, it's still going to work, and it's going to apply to a lot of creatures for the most part.
95% of the situations it would have before. And then the sap property now works with weapons that have the versatile property or no property. So I think that's just for the fighter, changing the prerequisite of the property. But yeah, still just gives them disadvantage on their next attack roll before the start of their next turn. That kind of just makes a difference for the fighter once they get to their level 9 feature and they can swap stuff out. And I like this change a lot. The quarterstaff now gets the topple property, which I think is the only simple weapon that has that. Yeah, if you are playing the sad excuse for the monk from the last playtest, that's at least a nice buff you can get.
Yeah.
You can take the quarterstaff and get topple. Only good weapon you can really use there.
And even then, you still have to struggle through the con save.
Oh yeah.
But either way, I'm happy to see the quarterstaff gets
yeah.
It makes sense.
And if they add the quarterstaff back to the polearm master feat, then that'd be really cool, honestly.
Oh, there's a lot you could do with that there. Yeah.
And then the spear now has the sap property, which is honestly just cool now that the quarterstaff and the spear are different now, and they both don't just have flicks.
Because wasn't that even a problem, if I remember correctly, even in 5e, where like they were just kind of like
the same thing,
just right next to each other, doing the same exact thing. And
the only difference is the damage type.
Yeah. So you just always picked one over the other.
Yeah.
Based off damage.
And then they did the same thing for the longsword and the war pick, giving them sap, and then the warhammer gets the push property, which I guess just gives you a little bit more variety with those versatile weapons than just flex. Just one more damage and you can't use two hands anymore. I think overall removing it is still a good change, but I think it'd be cool if there was one more. But
yeah, it would be cool to not just throw it away, try to see if there was maybe some way they could make it work. But I'm happy that they're trying to at least diversify things a little bit, because that's been a problem for the entire life of 5e.
Looks like that's it for the spell and weapon changes. In the last video we talked about the wizard. If you'd like to check that out, you can do so right here. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.